Hey, what's up? So I've gotten like a lot of asks of people being like, I want to read the book, the Brick book, the Les Mis book. There's so many different sorts and kinds that I just don't know which one I should read. And so I can definitely help you out. But also like don't feel like you have to. Don't feel like because you like the musical, you're like obligated to read the book, because you definitely are not. Yeah, so if you actually want to read a tangible book, I can definitely help you. But then it's ultimately up to you to choose which translation you want to read, and also if you want to read abridged or not abridged. There's a ton of options, and I am 100% here to help you. So let's head on over there, huh? So there's lots of options for you. No shame in any option that you pick. If you would like to read Cozy Classics version of Les Mis, where it just sort of says some words, but has really cute little felt boys, then you go right ahead. First came Les Mis, written by Victor Hugo, and it was written in French. The very first person to translate it was Wilbur, and let me see if I can remember which one is his. This one. Yes. I was right. So this is Wilbur's translation. It comes in all forms because his is one of the most popular ones because it was the first. And because it was translated from the original French, he did pretty much like word for word translation. If you want to pretend like you're reading French, but you're reading it in English, this is the one for you. He didn't really take any liberties with like, this is sort of the gist of what Hugo was saying. It's like, no, this is exactly what Hugo was saying. So all of the different ways that the French language differs from the English language in terms of like sentence structure and stuff, it is all the French way in here. I think that this one is a little harder to like get a grasp on, especially if it's your first time reading the Brick ever. I'm gonna read a section from all the translations, but this one's from the Wilbur translation, just so you can get a feel for how things are different. I'm gonna read everyone's favorite part when Grantaire wakes up and gets shot with Enjolras. Retired as he was in a corner, and as it were sheltered behind the billiard table, the soldiers, their eyes fixed upon Enjolras, had not even noticed Grantaire, and the sergeant was preparing to repeat the order, "Take aim," when suddenly they heard a powerful voice cry out beside them, "Vive la République!" I belong to it. Grantaire had arisen. The immense glare of the whole combat, which he had missed and in which he had not been, appeared in the flashing eye of the transfigured drunkard. He repeated, "Vive la République!" crossed the room with a firm step, and took his place before the musket beside Enjolras. "Two at one shot," said he. And turning towards Enjolras gently, he said to him, "Will you permit it?" Enjolras grasped his hand with a smile. The smile was not finished when the report was heard. The one to come second is a British translation, Raxel. I have not read this. I'm gonna assume it's gonna be similar in terms of the language won't be super modern, and because it was it was a British translation, there might be more older Britishisms, which might make it more confusing if you're not British. I really don't know. Concealed as he was in a corner, and sheltered, so to speak, by the billiard table, the soldiers, who had their eyes fixed on Enjolras, had not even perceived Grantaire, and the sergeant was preparing to give the order to fire, when all at once they heard a powerful voice crying at their side, "Long live the Republic! I belong to it." Grantaire had risen, and the immense gleam of all the combat which he had missed appeared in the flashing glance of the transfigured drunkard. He repeated, "Long live the Republic," crossed the room with a firm step, and placed himself before the muskets by Enjolras' side. "Kill us both at once," he said, and turning gently to Enjolras, he asked him, "Do you permit it?" Enjolras pressed his hand with a smile, and this smile had not passed away ere the detonation took place. Third up is going to be Isabel, last name, Isabel Hapgood. Her translation is not based on any other translation, so it's just hers and hers alone. It will like flow just a little bit more, but it's still pretty old. I have a modern version of Isabel's. If you have this copy, if you have this one, it doesn't say who wrote it, it does say who wrote it. He did. It doesn't say who translated it, but I compared it to all of my copies, and it's Isabel, it's Hapgood. Also, if you have this monstrosity, It also doesn't say who translated it, but it's Hapgood. Hey Cass, for just like 1 second, could you just... Relegated as he was to one corner and sheltered behind the billiard table, the soldiers whose eyes were fixed on Enjolras had not even noticed Grantaire, and the sergeant was preparing to repeat his order, "Take aim," when all at once they heard a strong voice shout beside them, "Long live the Republic! I'm one of them." Grantaire had risen. The immense gleam of the whole combat that he had missed, and in which he had had no part, appeared in the brilliant glance of the transfigured drunken man. He repeated, "Long live the Republic," crossed the room with a firm stride, and placed himself in front of the guns beside Enjolras. "Finish both of us at one blow," he said. And turning gently to Enjolras, he said to him, "Do you permit it?" Enjolras pressed his hand with a smile. This smile was not ended when the report resounded. So I'm pretty sure fourth came Denny. So what Denny did basically, he thinks that translation should be more about taking the essence of what the original author was intending and then translating it into whatever language you're translating it into. So unlike Wilbur, who did like word for word translation, Denny was like, I'm gonna do like soul for soul translation, where it was like, I know what Hugo was trying to say, so I'm going to take his French words and translate it in a way that English people will understand what he was trying to get to make it a little more accessible. The soldiers, intent upon Enjolras, had not even noticed Grantaire, who had been slumbering in a corner, partially concealed from them by the billiard table. The sergeant was about to repeat the order, "Take aim," when suddenly a loud voice cried, "Long live the Republic! I'm one of them." Grantaire had risen to his feet. The blazing light of the battle, of which he had seen nothing, and in which he had taken no part, shone in the eyes of the transfigured sot. He repeated, "Long live the Republic," and walking steadily across the room, took his stand beside Enjolras, confronting the muskets. "Might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone," he said, and then, turning to Enjolras, he added gently, "If you don't mind." Enjolras clasped his hand with a smile. The smile had not ended when the volley rang out. So fifth came the one that I think most people are familiar with, McAfee and Fahrenstock?
Fahnestock. There's no second N.
Fahnestock. Lee and Norman. Lee and Norman are pals, and they did this really cool little project together. They based their translation on Wilbur's translation. Made it, like, modernized it, but it was still pretty long ago, and they still didn't do the thing Denny did. Denny was like, I'm gonna make it more poetic and more beautiful. They still did, I'm gonna make this what the French translation was. So it's modernized, but still has the same sensibility of like, this is gonna be exactly what Hugo wrote. If you want a slightly modernized version of Wilbur's version, then yeah, do this one for sure. Relegated as he was to a corner, and as those sheltered behind the billiard table, the soldiers, their eyes fixed upon Enjolras, had not even noticed Grantaire, and the sergeant was preparing to repeat the order, "Take aim," when suddenly they heard a powerful cry out beside them. "Vive la République! Count me in." Grantaire was on his feet. The immense glare of the whole combat he had missed, and in which he had not been, appeared in the flashing eye of the transfigured drunkard. He repeated, "Vive la République!" crossed the room, and firmly took his place in front of the muskets beside Enjolras. "2 at 1 shot," he said. And turning towards Enjolras gently, he said to him, "Will you permit it?" Enjolras shook his hand with a smile. The smile was not finished before the report was heard. Enjolras shook his hand with a smile. Don't worry, they're just bros who shake hands.
Also count me in!
Also, count me in. A 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 2 more, and these verge more on very modernized. So the one I'm gonna talk about, Rose, she did one in 2007. Also, this cover is amazing. I love it. It is just completely modernized. You lose some of the super long digressions and all of that stuff, which, you know what, if you don't want to read that, that's totally fine. You can also like skip those. So if you want a modern experience where you can more fully connect and understand the text, if like you don't like reading classics, which again is like absolutely fine, then 100% do that. Relegated as he was to a corner and more or less protected by the billiard table, Enjolras had the eyes of the soldiers riveted on him. They had not even spotted Grantaire, and the sergeant was getting ready to repeat the order. Take aim. When all of a sudden, they heard a powerful voice shouting right next to them, Long live the Republic. I'm with them. Grantaire had risen to his feet. The immense blazing light of the fight, which he had completely missed, had not taken part in, appeared in the startling gaze of the drunkard transfigured. He repeated, Long live the Republic. Then he crossed the room with a steady tread and went and planted himself beside Enjolras, in front of the raised guns. You might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, he said. And turning to Enjolras gently, he said to him, All right with you? Enjolras shook his hand with a smile. He was still smiling when the explosion ripped through the silence. And then the most recent one that I know of is this one by Christine Doniger, I think. It's gorgeous. And again, I haven't read this, but I am assuming it's the same deal as Roses. It's pretty modernized. I don't think to the extent of Roses is, based on some of the passages that I've read. The soldiers, with their eyes fixed on Enjolras, had not even noticed Grantaire, tucked away as he was in the corner, and as though screened by the billiard table. And the sergeant was about to repeat his order, take aim, when all at once they heard a loud voice cry out beside them, Long live the Republic, so say I. Grantaire was on his feet. The tremendous conflagration of all the fighting he had missed, in which he had played no part, appeared in the glittering eyes of the transfigured drunkard. Long live the Republic, he repeated, then strode across the room and went to stand next to Enjolras, facing the guns. Make it 2 at the same time, he said. And turning to Enjolras, he said to him deferentially, With your permission. Enjolras pressed his hand, smiling. He was still smiling when the burst of gunfire came. Also, like, if you want to just read an abridged, like, you don't have to read the full boy. Like, you really don't. First of all, you don't even have to read it at all. But if you want to read an abridged one, and like, that's what I did first. Like, granted, it was like, I was very small, I was like 13. But I read this one, which is a Borders one that I don't know exists anymore because that story's hella gone. But this was a abridged version of Wilbur's. I got it. Like I understood what was going on. I made some like notes. Oh God. Oh wow. Yeah, so I guess I wrote this. This is Enjolras and Grantaire's death. That I felt compelled to write in pencil in 2008. It made me very sad. And I put a little frown. God, Lee, what a dumbass. There's another one. Oh no, I saw this one. I remember this more recently because I scratched out my dead name and put my real name. But I wrote this to Hugo somehow in hopes he would see it in the beyond, that I appreciate his writing. Whew! Oh, I'm a huge nerd. Oof. Oh God. Also, there are like cool ones. Like this manga. There's some other really beautiful ones. Like this one is like stunning. There's this one. It really gives you just the bare bones of the story. Woman. There was bread. I can kind of piece together what's going on. And then, girl? Absolutely. Policemen? Stop. What I don't like about this is that this is so based on, right? The movie. Eddie on horseback. Like it's him and this is Russell. What are we teaching our children? Lastly, I'm not gonna say please don't because you can do whatever you want, but I would advise against reading this. This is all of Les Mis in 287 pages. Also, it has some pretty sick art. That's pretty cool. But I don't understand why they drew him and then they like got stock footage of like guns and put them there. That's real nice. Kind of looks like she's like trying to kill him, but whatever. Oh! That's a nice little surprise. Don't read this. This is like ultra abridged. I very specifically was upset that they didn't include Andras and Grantair's death, so I typed it. And I made a spelling mistake. The spelling mistake I made was, instead of saying the smile was not finished when the report was heard, I said the smile was not finished. So, you know, it goes both ways in this crazy world, right? So I would highly recommend staying the hell away from this one because it's just wild. We were looking at this one the other day. It's so hard to see on first glance. You're like, okay, it's Cosette. And then you fucking realize that that's like Hugh Jackman. And there's Amanda, and there's Eddie, like weirdly sort of like photoshopped. And then there's the Eiffel Tower, which the Eiffel Tower was started construction in 1887 and was done in 1889. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. So that's it for me today. You should choose whatever translation you want. If you want to read an abridged brick, you should, because that's all that matters, is whatever the hell you want to do. If you don't want to read it at all, then don't. This is my wonderful copy from the 1800s I love, and it's only volume 1. If you have volume 2 of this book, I will pay big money to have volume 2. I have had volume 1 since 2013, I think, which I got on for $25 on Etsy. What?